Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Procura Award winners webinar. We are just about to start. Thanks for everyone for having signed up. My name is Paula Land. I work for ICLE Local Governments for Sustainability, and I will be moderating and facilitating this webinar today. Before I go into it and give a quick presentation about Hello, good morning, everyone. It seems like I've muted myself, so sorry for that. But hopefully you can hear me now. I was just about to give a quick introduction into how GoToWebinar works. So I was saying that you can ask questions at any time, and you also have the option to raise your hand if you would like to ask a question in person. As I don't know when my audio cut out, I will just keep going and then go back to my introduction in the beginning. Sorry for that. So just about the raising hands function, I quickly want to do a test with everyone to see if it works for you. If you want to raise your hand, can you just please click on the raise hand button so I can see that everyone, yes, perfect. Everyone sees the button. So if you want to make use of that, you can just click the raise hand button and then I will unmute you and bring you into the conversation. So, as I said again, welcome everyone to this Procura Winners Award webinar. My name is Paula Land. I work for ICLE Local Governments for Sustainability and I will be facilitating and moderating today. Just a quick introduction into what Procura Plus is and why we have this webinar today. Then I will run through the agenda and then I will hand over to our two presenters that I'm very excited have joined us today. First off, a quick introduction from my side. Then we will hear a presentation from Aline de Coquer from the city of Ghent about how to mainstream sustainability and fair trade in the textiles supply chain. Through procurement. Then following her, I'm very excited, we have Bob Jones from CERN, who will sharing with us about their Helix Nebula Cloud Storage System, the open cloud data storage innovation through pre-commercial procurement. And then at 11:50, there will be time for questions and we'll close the webinar. But to start off, just a little bit of background. Many of you may be familiar with the Procura Plus European Sustainable Procurement Network, which is the framework in which we have this webinar today. It is a network that is run by ICLE Local Governments for Sustainability, and it's a network dedicated to sustainable public procurement. It has participants from cities, other public organizations such as universities, and it helps them to connect, exchange, and act on sustainable public procurement. So far, we've been doing this for 16 years. Participants are coming from 16 different countries. We have a total of 42 participants. And by this, we cover almost 63 million of the European population, if you want to see it that way. Here you can see a quick map of our participants. We're quite widely spread all across Europe. You can see even Reykjavik and Iceland as a member. And we do, within this network, there's a couple of activities that we do to bring public procurers together. We organize a series of events and workshops. We also host conferences on sustainable public procurement, and we want to make sure public procurers across Europe can really work together on their sustainable public procurement questions. So the range of events that we have, we do organize Procura Plus seminars for face-to-face exchange and really in-depth work. We offer webinars like this one, but there's also more topic-focused webinars where we have a webinar series about this. And we also host the Procura Plus conference which is a European-wide forum to promote exchange and dialogue amongst everyone involved in sustainable public procurement. I know events are not really the order of the day at the moment, but hopefully we will all get through this and have the opportunity to have face-to-face events and meetings again. The next Procure Plus conference is scheduled to take place in Lisbon at the end of November 2020. I hope to meet some of you there, and I also hope that with the current situation we can still go ahead with this event. But so far it's looking good. Of course, members of the network, of the Procure Plus network, we also try and provide them with new opportunities to engage in projects and to engage in Horizon 2020 funded projects. I will skip this real quick, but if you're interested in the Procure Plus network and would like to receive a little bit more information, you can also get in touch with me after the webinar. Let's get to the most important part, which is the Procure Plus Awards. As part of the Procure Plus network, every year we together with a high-level jury award the Procure Plus Awards in 4 categories to promote and give attention to outstanding sustainable and innovation procurement that is happening across Europe. We know that every good project is supported by a great procurement team, and with the Procure Plus Awards we want to make sure that a bit of light is shown on them as well. So here are the 4 categories. It's Sustainable Procurement of the Year, for which today we have Ghent with us, who will present with their last year's winning entry. It's Toolbox for Sustainable and Ethical Procurement of Textiles. We'll hear more of that later from Aline. Then we have the category Innovation Procurement of the Year, in which in 2019 the city of Frederiksberg in Denmark won with its procurement of a cloudbird management and irrigation system. Then we have the Procurement Initiative of the Year. The winner last year was Zurich. And then we also have the category for Outstanding Innovation Procurement at ICT. Last year, this award went to CERN in Switzerland, and more on that one from Bob in a minute. So if you are interested in submitting an application to the Procure Plus Awards, you can do so by 31st of March. We really look forward to a broad range of applications because, as you know, it's important to promote the power of procurement EU-wide and also get some recognition for the good work that procurers across Europe are doing. So if you are interested in applying, you can either get in contact with me or find all the information you need on procureplus.org/awards. And with this, I would like to close my quick introduction, and I would like to hand over to our presenters. So the first presentation you'll see is from Aline de Coquer from the city of Ghent, who I've already quickly introduced, but I would like to hand over the word to her now. Aline.
Yeah. Hello, Paula. Yes. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you well. Thank you.
Perfect. I have my presentation on my screen. I don't know if you can see it or. Hello?
Hi, yes. Are you sharing your screen?
Yeah, did I had to share my webcam, but I have to click something I forgot. I'm sorry. My screen is on my laptop and now I'm seeing you, but I have to, now I see my screen. Do you see it?
No, unfortunately we can't see it right now.
Okay, but I have to click something. I'm sorry.
There's another person that has that is you're not Eline Severholt. Wait, I'm gonna just do this and then
maybe this. Do I have to click something first? No. Huh?
No, it's okay. I need to make you the presenter.
Oh yeah.
But it seems like at the moment we have a slight technical issue with this.
Do you want me to email the presentation? and
Yeah, I think
maybe
that
it's
could be a
faster.
good idea. I'm sorry about this.
Yeah. No problem. No problem.
Just yeah,
It's the
if you can
first time I'm doing this too. Yep. I'm gonna do that right away. I didn't email it before because I wasn't ready yet. So
No, don't worry about it.
Voilà.
Okay. Yeah, there's been quite a run on our GoToWebinar system, so it might be that for that reason it's a bit challenging.
Yeah,
But you can email me the
everything's gonna be all
presentation.
right.
Everybody, I'm sorry about this.
It's on its way to you.
Perfect.
Takes its time.
Yeah, it just takes a little bit of takes a minute to load, I think. I mean, if you want, maybe there's a couple of things you can already say without the
Yeah, I can
presentation.
start. No problem.
Yeah.
So everybody can hear me right now.
Yes.
So hello everybody. My name is Aline. Since 2012, I work as a public buyer at the city of Ghent. Ghent is a city in Belgium. But first of all, I would like to thank eClay for organizing the webinar and for inviting me. It's an honor. So the next minutes, we will see the presentation too. I'm going to tell you a little more about our sustainable and ethically produced workwear. Maybe I will wait for the presentation now because it's easier if people can read it. I will tell something about our procurement strategy. Why did we focus on textiles? Also, a little word about our toolbox, of course, our association of Flemish cities and municipalities. I will explain something about that. I will explain the tool we use for our workwear and also show my screen. I get the option show my screen.
Sorry, I just managed to make your presenter finally.
Super. So I guess everybody can see my presentation.
We can see your presentation now.
Okay, so yeah, so indeed, my name is Aline. I work for the procurement office for the city of Ghent. We will see some points, but we will go on. First of all, our procurement strategy. In 2014, the city of Ghent updated its procurement strategy and it has 7 pillars. I'm going to read them shortly. The 7 pillars, first of all, minimizing the ecological footprint through the entire life cycle of goods and services we procure. Then encouraging sustainable employment of disadvantaged groups, promoting sustainable innovations, fostering local economic growth with a focus on startups and innovative companies. And then that one is important for me, integrating and ensuring that the international labor standards and fair trade principles within the state supply are met. And then encouraging sustainable entrepreneurship and increasing our own maturity of our public procurement function. So we have to make sure we are professionals. As a public buyer, it is our job to include these 7 pillars at the max into our procurement. So that's not always realistic, but we try. Now, why did we focus on textiles? If we talk about respecting the international labor standards and fair trade principles, there are 3 high-risk profiles. These 3 are ICT, stones. A few years ago, there was a tender for the procurement of natural stones for the reconstruction of our Korenmarkt in Ghent. The tender required a declaration of honor, assuring us that all the working conditions were respected. And of course, the contract was awarded to a company that signed the declaration of honor. But nevertheless, a journalist appeared and noted that child labor was involved in our natural stones. So not good. A declaration of honor is apparently not enough. We have to make sure that we have all the working conditions good, but not just through a declaration of honor. We wanted to avoid the same story for our new framework agreement of workwear, of course. And indeed, textiles is also a high risk profile. We chose textiles because the timing was right. We just needed to make a new framework agreement for our workwear. But also Ghent has a rich textile history. We have our waters and boats that were transporting all the textiles in history. And Ghent was the first fair trade city in Belgium, so we have to make a good example. A little word about our toolbox, socially responsible workwear. There was a collaboration with the Association of Flemish Cities and Municipalities. I didn't do all the work by myself. First, we did a tender analysis. We did an evaluation of the already existing tenders and studies on this topic in Europe, but we didn't find that much, fortunately. Also, there was an evaluation of our previous workwear, of course. We asked our end users of the workwear if they were happy, if they had new needs, specific wishes. It's also important that they are a part of the analysis, the end users, because in the end they have to wear the workwear, they have to be happy too. We did an extensive market research. We did questionnaires, interviews, market sessions. I had some trainings about textile technical stuff because I'm not a textile engineer. I followed fairs, I did everything. It took a lot of time, but it was all worth it. We developed a tool that other buyers can use, so we can exchange our experience. We don't have to keep it for us. Everybody can learn from the mistakes and progresses we made. And it is our intention to change something in the markets of textiles through our combined purchasing power as a government. And so we did. The aim of our pilot was minimal environmental impact throughout the life cycle and the maximum guarantee that international and national working conditions and human rights have been respected throughout the entire life cycle, the entire supply chain. So not just the last step, not just the supplier with who we buy the workwear, but every step in the supply chain, because that is what the high risk is in textiles. We committed to continuously improve the working conditions and the supply chains of our suppliers for the entire duration of the contract. That's 4 years. And the tool we developed exists of 4 levels. The first one is engagement. That's the basic one. That's respecting and actively applying the general corporate social responsibility and social responsible chain management principles as laid down in our code of conduct. The next step, the second level, is transparency. The suppliers have to annually report the social risks in their supply chain based on externally verified risk reporting. So not just a declaration of honor. The third level is action. That's when the supplier takes corrective actions to respect the principles. And the best level is leadership. If the supplier structurally improves the social risk in the supply chain by implementing social management systems. Concrete, our framework agreement exists of 5 lots. And it's not realistic to demand leadership for every lot. We have a lot of sustainable workwear, a lot of standard workwear. We have a lot with towels and baby bibs, a lot of work shoes, and a lot with gloves and other personal protective equipment. For example, for the sustainable workwear, it's pretty easy to go to leadership. But for gloves, we will already be happy if we have transparency. So every sector has a different maturity, so we choose our level depending on the sector. I hope this is clear, but you can ask questions. On the slide, you can see the link beneath to the English version of our toolbox. Please visit it. It's a result of all what we did, of all where we had problems with, and of the way we, of our methods we used to come to social responsible workwear. So where are we now? It's all nice when it's in theory, but practical we have to do something too. Our workwear now is made from organic and fair trade cotton and recycled polyester for the tissues where it's possible. We are also having an end-of-life solution for our old workwear. It's being recycled. And we have at least two times a year, a dialogue with our 5 suppliers, and it's a constant collaboration between the suppliers and us. We have to do it together. We just can't say to our suppliers, you have to do it like this, and leave them. We have to help them. It's a collaboration. You can see it. Collaboration is the key. This is the 4th P in the people, planet, and prosperity. It's partnership. It's so important. You have to help the sector. You have to help the market. Otherwise, they won't happen very much. That's what we saw in this pilot. Yeah, the Procura Award, it's very, very, very nice, I can tell you. I was there and I was thrilling. I was so happy. I made a jump of because I was so happy. It's very grateful for winning this award. It means a lot to me personally because I had so much work on this pilot. But it's also very important that we share our knowledge and we get more attention for pilot projects, and we can change the market together. So this was very short. I can tell you hours about this, but I have to limit my time. You can still ask me some questions. You can ask me questions later on. My email address will appear on the next slides. I want to thank you for listening to me. I hope it was a little bit clear. My English is not that good anymore, but I tried. You can find my email address here. The presentation will be available, I guess. So thank you for listening and good luck.
Yeah, thank you, Aline. That was really interesting, and also really glad to hear that Procura Plus Awards were such a success for you and for your organization.
Yes,
so as you say, I would like to open the floor for questions. Again, if you want, you can just type in a question if you don't want to ask it in person. And you can also raise your hand to ask a question directly. Are there any questions right now to Aline? I will maybe start off with a question from my side. You mentioned that cooperation is really important, cooperation with the supplier. I am curious, how did your suppliers react to your quite ambitious program, and how has the cooperation or collaboration with them changed over the course of time?
Yes, you hear me?
Yes, you're still there.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, how did they react? Very positive. We didn't expect this actually. Already within the procedure, so before we set some demands, there were already some suppliers who changed the way they worked. Suppliers who became a member of the Fairer Foundation. Suppliers who were looking to their supply chain and maybe looking for other suppliers because they didn't met the labor conditions. So there were already some steps during the procedure. So without us asking it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very happy to hear that. And otherwise, now we are the framework is running since 2018. We see that for most of the lots, the full supply chain is already transparent, except for the gloves and work shoes. That's a more difficult story. But there we are trying together with the supplier to start with maybe one supplier, for example, 3M for the helmets and stuff like that, that they start with one supplier and ask him to be transparent about the supply chain. And these are very small steps, but we encourage them to do it together, and it's working like that. I'm pretty sure that in 2022, when the framework ends, we will not have a perfectly good, sociable, responsible supply chain for gloves, for example. But we do already have it for the sustainable workwear, for the standard workwear, for the line, and for a part of the shoes. So we are already happy with the steps they took. And everybody is very enthusiastic and positive because they feel the market is changing. More and more governments are asking about this, more and more people are asking about it. It's becoming a hot topic. You cannot sell a product if you know there's child labor involved, for example. So more and more awareness in the market, and I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, all right, cool, thank you. So yeah, also to everyone, Aline, you will be with us until the end of the webinar, so if there's any other questions that come up, just feel free to ask them anytime. But for now, I would like to thank you for this really interesting presentation and taking the time to speak here today. And now I would like to hand over the word to our second panelist and presenter, Bob Jones from CERN. Bob, I will hand it over to you and give it up to you to introduce yourself and give your presentation, which is coming more from an innovation angle, I think, than the sustainability angle. Hi, Bob. Bob, I think you need to unmute yourself quickly. Perfect.
Oh, okay. So someone else unmuted me. That's perfect. All
yes.
right. So good morning, everybody. Thank you very much. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So again, thank you very much for the invitation. I'd just like to repeat the words of the previous speaker, saying that participating in the Procura Awards was very rewarding for CERN as well, and also attending the event in Stavanger, where we certainly our procurement group were very happy to interact with many other procurers there as well. So I'll tell you a little bit today about the activities. I highlight just as an introduction, CERN is the European Centre for High Energy Physics Research. We are the host and operator of the Large Hadron Collider. You've probably heard about that before. And so what we're talking about today is, how have we done innovation procurement in the ICT domain to help us support the scientific program that we run. Okay. So if I now, oops, I go back. So, all right, so this is called the HNSciCloud. And just to give you an outline of what this is, it was a joint procurement of a pre-commercial nature across a buyer's group of 10 research organizations across 7 different countries in Europe. And you can see the different organizations, all publicly funded procurement authorities across the different countries. You can see that in the map. What you see on the left as well is the list of all those, and we engaged some experts as well in helping us run this. And what actually happened was that each of the procurers had to invest themselves, of course, in terms of contribution to the procurement funds. They put in place as well their own manpower for testing and evaluation of the resulting IT services, and also deployment of their own use cases and applications, and linking it to their own in-house IT capacity. The table below there sort of shows you the range of different use cases or applications that were foreseen as an objective for this pre-commercial procurement. So from the field of high energy physics, of course, where CERN is involved, but also astronomy, life sciences, photon neutron sciences, and the long tail of science. So quite a wide range of requirements to take into account and put together. The total procurement budget was approximately 5.3 million, and this was co-funded by the European Commission through the Horizon 2020 grant using the pre-commercial procurement financial framework. The challenges that we're addressing, yes, it was mentioned in the introduction that we're talking about cloud storage, but it's not only storage, it's also compute, high performance computing, transparent data access at very large scale, looking at large research data sets and processing those across those different scientific domains. The network connectivity, when you're dealing with such a large amount of data and compute as well, is very important. So that was an element there. And also the security in terms of access to this information using sort of federated identity management schemes. And then another important point was the whole service payment models. Most of the publicly funded research organizations are used to procuring hardware, operating it on site themselves and providing access in that way. Now, what would be actually the payment models if we're now not procuring hardware or software licenses, but if we're actually procuring external services, and how are we using those? And we looked at different ways of using voucher schemes for long-tailed science users, and also the importance of a total cost of ownership study as well. And I'll mention those two things a bit more. Fine. Just to give you an overview of what it actually means when we're using these pre-commercial procurement financial instrument and the steps involved. Well, the whole process took 3 years. So basically, the first part was the preparation, the analysis of requirements, looking at current market offers, understanding the relevant standards, bringing together this stakeholder group, which is not only the procurers, but also the other experts and other groups involved, and of course coming up with the tender material, because the idea is it resulted in a single common public tender across those 10 procuring organizations. We launched the tender, and then it goes into the implementation stage where it is competitive at each stage, and there's 3 stages. We started with 4 designs, and then the best 3 designs are taken through via a call-off into a prototype. Prototypes are tested with the end users and with the IT experts, and from that we take the best 2 prototypes through to a pilot phase where large scale deployments of the use cases took place. So that's the overall process. It took approximately 3 years to go through all of this process. From a procurement point of view, there's some lessons learned from doing all of this. So in the procurement phase, the end user requirements or needs assessment was a complex task because we had a large buyer group with a range of deployment scenarios. And we organized multiple working sessions to establish the priorities and the expectations of these different buyers so that we could collectively converge on this single tender and agreed set of specifications for that. Also, a lot of understanding of the state of the art, looking through the various scientific journals available in this domain, understanding the intellectual property aspects, what are involved there, and interviews with different state of the art companies and so on. And then understanding the standardization possibilities. An important point for the research organizations here was to avoid being locked in to a single supplier for the set of services at the end. So looking at how we could make use of recognized international standards from the ICT domain in the definition of our tender. So in terms of the open market consultation, we had 1 large-scale event, which was also webcast, hosted here at CERN with 78 attendees. You can see the distribution of attendees for that event in the map at the bottom. So that was very successful, and we brought together the potential bidders or companies interested, and also the representatives of the buyers groups as well. In order to make this possible, we made use of a technique known as planning poker, where the whole idea here is that we're trying to get input from in 2 parts. One part from the buyers group, so we all agree on the objectives and the tender and so on, and then also from the potential bidders, the companies in the market, how they understand the objectives that we're foreseeing in there as well. and treating those as two different stakeholder groups and using this technique with both of those stakeholder groups to determine which are the areas where we're likely to get a success out of this procurement by taking into account the risks and possibilities involved there. And this planning poker technique uses a Fibonacci series of cards here. And the whole idea is that if you have, imagine, many companies sitting in the same room, they probably don't want to share too much information with the other companies in the room that may also be potential bidders. So this technique allows them to respond to questions, given their confidence or their understanding of the questions in this environment, without having to give away too much information. But then that also leads to a discussion where we start to get more information from the companies in this environment. And the result of this is we build up sort of graph where you can see the risk versus the value of the different objectives in the procurement, and then we allowed to identify. That allowed us to focus on those objectives where we had a good chance of making a success of it in terms of what is the level of risk and the return on investment or the value of undertaking that. So making sure that what we were going to procure was considered interesting from the company's point of view, the potential bidder's point of view, and of course of value from the buyer's group as well. To do this, we made use of a specialist company, one of the experts called Adestino, which is a Belgian SME who specializes in using this planning poker technique. Looking at the procurement process, so I said it went in sort of 3 phases with the contract implementation. As a result of the launch of the tender, we received 10 bids. Out of that, we selected 4, and the selection was done in a committee with all the buyer group members represented. And so through that, we awarded contracts to the 4 consortia there as part of a framework agreement. And this was awarded as a sort of for the design phase, and we carried on with the same process, eliminating some of the design phase, one of the design phase consortia in the prototyping phase, which lasted for 8.5 months, then another call off and another award decision, again evaluation by all the members of the buyers group, and ending up with 2 consortia in the final pilot phase. Without going into the IT details, these are what the 2 winning consortia carried through to the end of the pilot phase. You see the companies involved there. We're very happy that we got a good, strong participation from European companies in here. And also you can see that the technologies that they're based on are very much open source based technologies. And this was in the tender, we favored open source solutions by awarding higher scores to open source proposed solutions in the criteria. And we were able to get different solutions coming out of here. You'll notice there that there's HNSciCloud, which is a Polish organization, which is present in both of the winning pilot phase consortia. And this was considered a risk for the project because we were nervous that we would end up with a single solution in that particular domain. And this is one of the things that if we did it again, we'd try and make sure that there wasn't so much of an overlap. There wasn't any overlap in the proposed solutions at the end to ensure that we had very distinct possibilities. But I'm pleased to say that these were successful and these were carried through, and the companies are actually selling these solutions as well on a wider market now. In terms of the deployments, so this just sort of shows you we had all the different buyers group. You see each buyer organization, their logo shown on the first column there. So each row represents where they were particularly interested, and we were able with all of these organizations to get them to deploy their applications on those 2 final pilot phase solutions there. If you want to have more details, you can look at the booklet which explains each of these different areas on the website, which is shown at the bottom there as well. I mentioned the total cost of ownership. This is very important because at the end of this process, we want to see the organizations carrying on and procuring these solutions. And as part of this, it was very important for them to understand what would it cost for them to continue to operate and make use of these services over a longer term period. And this was sort of a deliverable that was expected from the sort of tendered consortia, contracted consortia during the pilot phase. And it outlines the cost categories for using these services in the future, which allowed the buyers group members to make decisions about their procurement intentions based on that. You can look at those documents there in more detail. They're publicly available for you there with the links at the bottom. So at the end of all of that, one of the important things as well is that in the research domain, Europe is engaging on something known as the European Open Science Cloud, which is really to ensure sort of a common environment for European scientists to reap the full benefits of the data-driven science by basically needing access to these sorts of services for 1.9 million researchers across Europe, as well as potentially in the second phase for the 70 million professionals in science and technology based on this open environment. So the results of the Helix Never Science Cloud are being taken into account in the establishment of this European Open Science Cloud. If you want to know more about the European Open Science Cloud, you can look at that short video. It's just 6 minutes long and explains to you what's the interest of the European Open Science Cloud if you've not heard of it before. Just so from a procurement point of view, a few of the lessons learned looking back over the 3 years, this open market consultation with the potential bidding companies was a very, very highly valuable process, and the preparation of it for the pre-commercial communities is critical and certainly needs a lot of resources and funds dedicated just to that process, so you end up with a clear understanding of the end user's needs and the state of the art. It also helped us get a lot of engagement from the companies. They become excited and interested in what we were trying to do, and also created momentum. Also engage in what we called early adopters. So these were other publicly funded organizations who hadn't committed resources to this procurement, but were interested in making use of the results. So it created, in a sense, additional market opportunities for the companies that were taken through to the pilot phase. We did share draft tenders documents during this process and collected feedback from potential bidders. So that was a good way of helping them understand what we were asking for and helping us make sure that what we were proposing was aligned with what was feasible by the market. Now, the other important thing is that talking about creating momentum, it's important not to lose that momentum by avoiding long delays between the open market consultation and tender publication, which can be created by extensive tender reviews by other funding bodies. So we try to keep that as short as possible, and that's something to bear in mind. About the tender phase itself, well, in the pre-commercial procurement instruments, the amount of funds available for the procurement have to be announced with it. And compared to the other processes that CERN employs, we found that this reduced the level of financial competition. Essentially, nearly all the bids were asking for pretty much the same amount of maximum funds available via the process. As I mentioned earlier, ensuring distinct solutions through the appropriate selection criteria for competition and innovation of a range of solutions is very important, and we will take more steps in that direction in the future. And we are very much in favour of the commercialisation plan and total cost of ownership studies as a way of increasing the interest and confidence in the resulting services. So those have to be taken into account in the award criteria and the set of deliverables you're expecting out of the procurement process itself. In terms of contract implementation, this was a very close relationship between the procurement teams and the technical teams, and that was essential to the success of the overall process. And we were able to set up a sort of dedicated team bringing those two parts together. We also made use of other techniques like interim payments, so not going all the way through each of the design phase, the prototype phase, and the pilot phase, with only payments at the end of helping to keep the contractors on track with the clear milestones and deliverables throughout those processes, roughly every 2 to 3 months, and regular meetings and monitoring with the contractors to help keep the focus and direction on the research and development they had to perform, and allowed them the opportunity to give regular feedback to the buyers group and get further information as the contract was progressing. And then some final remarks. So the process itself is quite an administrative load associated with that, so you should be aware of that if you're going into this thing. But the contractors said they did very much appreciate the overall process and the methodology, and above all, the ability to work with these experts from the buyers group as well, because they saw added value for them themselves in getting that. That was one reason they wanted to work with these public procurers. There was another question which I haven't mentioned before, but in the PCP process, the idea is that the contractor retains the intellectual property rights around the resulting services. And this is quite unusual. Normally, that's not what CERN does, and I think it's probably the same for most organizations. But that is part of this, and it was acceptable in this environment, in this structure. And the couple of steps that need to be taken into account is that it's still important then in doing that the buyers group, the procurers, have access to the sort of unlimited and irrevocable licenses, essentially, for their own purposes. So not the idea that we would go on and sell these things or something like that, but the idea that we, because we've also co-invested in the process, that we should have access to the results for our own internal uses and so on. And that this is an important point of the PCP process, and it can be made to work if it's made clear to the contractors and the buyers group members up front. Okay. So I'll stop there, and I'm open for any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much for this really interesting presentation. It sounds like it was an impressive and quite lengthy project, but well worth it, as I understand. And yeah, I would like to open the floor, of course, for questions. So again, everyone who would like to can type in their question or raise a hand if they want to ask a question. But also, it sounds like just hearing both you and Aline that really the close collaboration with the suppliers is a key to success. My question is about the PCP process. You mentioned this a couple of times. It is maybe quite new to some procurers. Will you maybe just describe some of the benefits that you see in pre-commercial procurement, not just for this procurement, but also more in general, where you see some strengths and benefits of this?
Yeah, so there's the idea of procuring as a group certainly attracted more, which is enabled by the PCP process, certainly attracted more companies of interest to work with us, because for their point of view, they see there's a better potential market for the results. If we start already with a grouping of 10 organizations from 7 different countries, then it's worth them being prepared to invest more in it. And I think one of the benefits of this process is it does give you a framework in which you can have this close cooperation with the companies to essentially co-develop new solutions in particular procurement domains.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I see. Thank you. And also sounds like CERN is well prepared to move towards more online working and teleconferencing, etc. Quite impressive how you did that whole market engagement poker remotely.
Yeah, well, it's a combination of the two things. We have now continued and we've taken on board many of the lessons learned from this process, and we are currently engaged in a new pre-commercial procurement project. That's called Archiver, which is for long-term data and preservation services. And we did this because of the results of Helix Nebula. We noticed there was something of a gap in the current market about long-term and data preservation services for large-scale data sets. So yes, you can find a way of archiving and preserving your email lists and things like that. But when you have large data sets of undefined formats and things like that, being able to store those and exploit them over many years is an important feature. And so we're in that process now of doing that. A tender has been launched for that, and in fact later this week there will be another session, but a completely teleworking or videoed version of that session will be taking place on the 18th of this month, and people are welcome to participate and follow that if they like.
Nice. Okay. Well, thank you. And also thanks again to Aline. My impression is that there's no further questions. Please, audience, correct me if otherwise. But then I would just like to take a couple of final words, thanking again our two presenters, and also again drawing attention to the Procura Plus Awards, which are now open for application. As I said before, the deadline is the 31st of March, and if you're interested in submitting an application to the Procura Plus Awards, then please do so, or if you have any questions, just contact me. But otherwise, I will be closing this webinar today. There will be follow-up Procura Plus webinars over the course of this year. And I would also like to say to everyone, please stay healthy and stay safe where you are. And let's use webinars as making the most out of this kind of strange situation that all of Europe is in right now. Okay, so this is it from my side. Enjoy the rest of your day and your week, and hope to see you soon at another webinar. Thank you.